Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zicree of Space Command, and also is the author of the Twilight Zone Companion. If you want to hear me talk for 30 hours, buy the Twilight Zone Blu-ray, and I did 52 commentaries. So you all know about Space Command and buying Space Command shares and the Kickstarter campaign we have coming up, all that stuff. Don't have to go into it again. But I'm actually here to review the 4th episode of Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone. And I've been thinking a lot about it because, the show, so far at least, is a disappointment, sadly. And it has great promise. Maybe it will, find its way. But so far it's not, So, but let's talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses and all of that. So it certainly has the right pedigree in Jordan Peele, I think. I liked Get Out, I liked Us, but the 4th episode is called A Traveler, and I don't believe it's written or directed by Jordan Peele. And according to my editor, Dave Edison, he's looked up on IMDb all of the episodes that they've done for this season, and apparently none of them are directed and written by Jordan Peele. So I'll check that out myself. I haven't checked it, so that's unverified. But I'll just give you a little summary of the plot. It has Greg Kinnear in it, and the actors are fine, and Greg Kinnear does a good job, but it's another racist cop, and the previous episode, number 3, had a racist cop, so, the other one was specifically about, Black Lives Matter, and I think that's important. This one, the guy's just more generically racist, and so it's kind of just an easy stereotype and an old trope, and so forth. It goes back to forever, but also movies like In the Heat of the Night, with Rod Steiger playing a racist cop against Sidney Poitier, and he won an Oscar for that. But, it starts to become an easy out for a writer and a lazy out for a writer, because it's like, okay, we've seen this guy, we know this guy. There's nothing really there to discover. And but the plot of this is it takes place in a town in Alaska, and it's Christmas, and they're having a Christmas party, and the sheriff pardons one prisoner each year, and so his deputy arrests her drunken brother and throws him in jail, and she and her brother are Inuit, and everyone else is white, more or less, as near as I could tell, and this Asian guy in a suit and a fedora shows up, and he's in the cell, and he's mysterious, and he claims to have a YouTube channel, and he's traveled here to document the sheriff pardoning a prisoner on Christmas. And again, by the way, several Twilight Zone things. Twilight Zone, the original, of course, had a great Christmas story in Night of the Meek, starring Art Carney as a drunken department store Santa who wants to be the real Santa, and it's a great episode. It was shot on black and white videotape, only one of 6 Twilight Zone episodes shot on videotape instead of 35mm film in the original show out of 156 episodes. But it's a classic. It's terrific and wonderful and perfect and great. So just to let you know that. So this is a Christmas story that A, is not airing on Christmas or anywhere near Christmas, and B, really has nothing about Christmas in it particularly, other than as a setting. So this mysterious guy shows up, and he at first claims he has a YouTube channel, but he has mysterious powers. Then he claims to be with the FBI, and then he claims to be with the espionage organization, security organization of the government, and so forth. So his story keeps changing, and there's a lot of Twilight Zone references in references to the original Twilight Zone. So there are characters named Matheson and Kolchak, after Matheson's character Kolchak, and Kolchak the Night Stalker. And there's a character named the main character, the mysterious character, I think at one point names him, refers to himself as Douglas Hayes, if I'm not mistaken, or someone refers to themselves as Douglas Hayes. And Doug Hayes, of course, was one of the great directors of the original Twilight Zone on Eye of the Beholder, Howling Man, The After Hours, and The Invaders, the one with Agnes Moorehead being menaced by 2 little spacesuited figures. And first of all, Doug was a dear friend and an amazing guy and a phenomenal director, and what he would have done with this episode directorially would have been far different from what they've done, which is okay, but fairly pro forma. And but Doug would have been phenomenal. Eye of the Beholder is just brilliantly directed, and many things. If you want to see a school on direction, just watch the opening shot of The After Hours, the Twilight Zone, the After Hours. They took a newspaper set from a feature that Metro had done and redressed it as a department store. And Doug has this moving camera shot at the beginning of that episode that's just gorgeous and so elegant, and just Really an amazing guy, and sadly missed. But okay, so they name a character after him as their tip of the hat, and they have Willie, the ventriloquist dummy from the episode The Dummy, in the gift wrap of one present, and they've got Talkie Tina, and the doll of the Gremlin from Nightmare on 20,000 Feet. So there's all these in references. The challenge is this. Okay, so this guy's making all these claims, and then he seems to have inside knowledge about all the different people that gets them kind of fighting with each other. And whether or not these are lies, we don't know, but they certainly seem to get to people's vulnerabilities. And he's telling the deputy that she'll move up to her boss's job, and she seems like a nice person, and hardworking, and competent. But meantime, they've also established there's an Air Force base nearby, and that they kind of look out for Russian, hijinks. It's a surveillance station, and they share the power grid with this, police department, and the police department is ostensibly guarding the security installation, and then we find out there's a shed that all of it can come crumbling down if the location of a top secret shed is discovered, and it's just stuff upon stuff piled high, with twists and turns for their own good, for their own reason. And then ultimately we discover that this guy in a suit is an alien. He's an alien, oh my god. And he's screwing with people because he wants to know the location of the shed so that they can disable it and the aliens can invade. Well, okay, there are several original Twilight Zone episodes that this kind of references or speaks to. The great one, of course, is Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which has aliens manipulating people to turn against each other. It's a brilliant, classic, terrific episode. We'll go and watch that. And then there's also, of course, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up, which is another. These are both scripts by Rod Serling in the original Twilight Zone, and that's about people in a diner, one of whom turns out to be a Martian. Both of these are great and far superior to this episode, which is called A Traveler. And the point of all of this at the end, I guess, is that the aliens have been manipulating these people so that they can stage their invasion. But why on earth he would need to? Why? First of all, did they research this in any way, shape, or form? I don't know. But clearly a security station wouldn't have a shed, the location of a shed, be the thing that could completely immobilize their security network and allow an alien invasion. It's just nutty. And if these aliens have all these powers, I mean, he has to know, he knows the names of all these people. He's able to push their buttons, whether with lies or with truth, to get them to jump to his tune. Well, how did he find out about all these people and all of their secrets, or ways to get them all riled, like how much they had to drink? If he can find that out through his means and ways, why can't he find out where the shed is? I mean, it seems like it'd be a lot simpler. And then at the end, there's the key question, which is, what is the point of all this? Because everyone gets fucked over, and the aliens invade, and it's like, why did these people get screwed with? Particularly the nice Inuit deputy, the girl, because she's fine, she's nice. I mean, okay, her brother says at one point that she wants to be white, she wants to be like the white people, and she doesn't want to hew to her ancestral beliefs. But there's really nothing in the episode that's shown that particularly, and beyond that, she's competent. She's doing her job as a cop. When the guy pops up, the mysterious stranger, she's checking on him. I mean, why does she get screwed over? And what is the point of this story other than just twists and turns for no particular reason that don't make sense the moment you start to unlock it and take it apart and say, well, why is this happening? So here's at base what I think the problem. Now that I've watched 4 episodes, I think I can start to see the warp and woof of this show. Here's the 2 mistakes I think they've made. And maybe it will get better, maybe it will shine, maybe it'll be wonderful. I hope so. They're putting effort into it. When Rod Serling did The Twilight Zone, he decided that he was going to put everything he had into it. And he not only wrote 4 pilot scripts to get the show sold, which was amazing, but he also knew he was going to be the main writer. This is back when a season of shows wasn't like 8 or 10 or 12 episodes. It was 39. So Rod knew that he was going to have an enormous amount of work. So he got out of a contract he had with MGM to make features, and that was a very lucrative contract. Got out of that, wasn't writing Playhouse 90s anymore. He was basically just going to do Twilight Zone, and he committed contractually to doing the majority of the scripts, a huge workload. He'd get up every morning, lounge by the swimming pool, dictate the scripts, have them typed up. Then around noon he'd go to the office and work as a producer on the show. I mean, he was putting his heart and soul and every bit of his strength and energy and creativity and genius into this show. He was really committing. And he said, I don't know if the show is going to succeed. When he was interviewed by Mike Wallace before the show aired, he said, I don't know if this show is going to succeed. And if it doesn't, I've lost a lot of money. But, but it's worth it. It's worth it because he knew it would take everything he had, and he was willing to make that commitment. Now, Jordan Peele has done a very good job with Get Out and Us, but it's Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, and he's not writing and directing these scripts, and he's doing other stuff, other features and so forth. Well, then he's just kind of the host, and maybe setting some aesthetic guidelines and running the writing staff perhaps, but he's not. It's not boots on the ground the way Serling was. And so that's the first part of it. So it's a writing staff, and they've hired them for all these different shows, and I'm sure it's a talented writing staff, but he hasn't gone to the top fantasy and science fiction writers and said, okay, let's see what you guys can do. The ones who could really come up with original and fresh and stories that make sense. But the other thing, and this is hard, and this is lightning in a bottle, is genius. I mean, Serling was a genius, and he found, through twists and turns and censorship and all these things that led him to Twilight Zone, he found his great canvas. And Twilight Zone, the reason it's lasted 60 years, the reason that someone who's 10 can watch it and enjoy it, as well as someone who's 60 or 80, is because it's a brilliant show. It's Rod Serling and genius. And the other part of it is that it attracted other geniuses, Matheson, Beaumont, George Clayton Johnson, people who could write shows that had never been seen before, scripts that had never been seen, and in a way where it was like completely original material, something breathtaking. I mean, if you look at the script of Kick the Can, it's... many of us who write for television, we read that script now. We watch those shows now. A Stop at Willoughby, A Kick the Can, Nothing in the Dark. So many brilliant episodes. Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. These are the best that the medium has ever done. These are exemplary. These are brilliant. It's the work of genius. It's like looking at the Sistine Chapel ceiling or The Last Supper, where you're just blown away by the level of accomplishment. And so I think a mistake that one makes with Twilight Zone in bringing it back is you assume that it's an easy trick, that it's a structural trick, or, it's this Rod Serling as the host and having this creepy atmosphere, and then let's just, have stuff happen. Nope. It takes the best that anyone can do. It's like, what's your A game or your A plus game? But most people don't have what it takes to do these kind of stories brilliantly. And so it took Buck Houghton, it took Rod Serling, it took all these amazing people. And when you have a great script, then you're able to get great music with like Bernard Herrmann and Jerry Goldsmith. You're able to attract great actors, great directors, and you're able to create something that has lasted for 60 years. So I'm hoping that Jordan Peele's next one will be great. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for this show, but so far I just see the mistakes that have been made in earlier iterations of Twilight Zone that were not done by Serling, the later ones. And at least the one that was done in the 80s had a great writing staff. It had Harlan Ellison, one of the great fantasy writers of all time. It had science fiction and fantasy, though he would hate to be labeled those terms. It had George R.R. Martin, who went on to Game of Thrones. It had the sense to look for people who could write the genre, who could write TV scripts, and who could also write really brilliant fantasy stories. Alan Brenner did some great work on that show too. And if you want to see the script that I wrote for that show, and that was censored and yanked from production a week before prep, the real Douglas Hayes was going to direct, you can go on markzickery.com and the script is there. Go to markzickery.com/Twilight Zone. You should be able to find the script. It's called Knife Through the Veil, and you can read it and see what I did in this world, in this genre. So, or you can watch some of the things I've written for shows like Sliders or Beyond Reality, etc., which are very much in this arena. So that's it for now. Subscribe to Mr. Sci-Fi. Throw some bucks at us at patreon.com/MarkZickery. We're going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign in about a week to shoot the rest of the second Space Command story. So there's lots coming down the pike. But thanks very much for everything you bring and everything you do, and we'll talk really soon. Bye, guys.